tell me about the upcoming performance with Bernadette in Van Wert, Ohio. What can the audience expect to see at the show?
Well, the Pops is coming to the Niswonger Center as part of a Midwest tour that we're doing. It's one of 8 dates. In addition to Van Wert, we'll be starting the tour in Kansas City next Friday, I guess, a week from today. Wow, how time flies. Then Iowa City, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, which is kind of cool because I don't think the Pops has ever played South Dakota before. Lincoln, Nebraska, Chicago, and outside of Indianapolis. But the Van Wert program is special because, of course, we're helping celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Niswonger Center, and they asked us to be involved in this gala, and they asked us if we could collaborate with a true headliner to add even more pop to the occasion, and they suggested Bernadette, and we have a long relationship with Bernadette. We've worked with her many times. I've worked with her probably a dozen times over the last 10 years or so. She's an American classic. She's an amazing performer on stage, just so delightful, so gorgeous, and so inhabits songs so well, and so of course we said yes to that. And we'll be rehearsing with her in Chicago the day before, and then bringing her along with us to Van Wert.
Now, what kind of music will be featured in the show? Is it mainly Gershwin, or?
Well, our portion of the program, the tour that this is a part of, is an entirely Gershwin tour, and we're cutting down and excerpting from that tour to present the first half of the concert. We'll be playing the overture to the Broadway show Nice Work If You Can Get It, and we'll be playing An American in Paris, Gershwin's great tone poem, and Rhapsody in Blue. All of it in the original Paul Whiteman Rhapsody in Blue orchestration, kind of a leaner, tighter, jazzier sort of orchestra, which would have been very much how Gershwin would have heard it himself in the 1920s. And then we'll take an intermission and we'll come back with Bernadette. And I don't have her set list in front of me, but if I know her, she'll be singing a lot of Broadway classics. She really sings music from the Great American Songbook, from Broadway, some Stephen Sondheim thrown in, some Send in the Clowns probably, and a version of Fever that is the absolute best one since Becky Lee.
Do you have any favorite moments in the show or favorite songs you like to conduct?
Well, Gershwin's repertoire, Gershwin's output is really central to us at the Pops. We're America's orchestra, and the great music written by Americans for orchestra is very, central to what we do. I have to say, An American in Paris still remains, even though I've probably done it several hundred times, one of my favorite pieces in the repertoire to conduct, and it never gets old. There's so much to it. It's so inventive, and such. The Gershwin program that we're doing in its entirety is really telling the story of George Gershwin, one of the great American creative geniuses of the 20th century. He managed to write An American in Paris, Rhapsody in Blue, the Concerto in F, the opera Porgy and Bess, several hit musicals, won a Pulitzer Prize for a Broadway musical, helped invent the movie musical in Hollywood, and did all this in about under 15-year span of time before his death of a brain tumor and at the age of 37. So, it's really a story of genius, and we'll tell a little bit of that story even before we see the stage to Bernadette.
Now, how often does the Boston Pops tour? I mean, during a typical year, how often are you on the road with the Boston Pops?
We're probably out, all told, maybe 4 weeks a year these days. A little bit less than we were 20 years ago, just because the economics of touring are harder than they used to be. But we were out for about a week and a half at the end of January, beginning of February for a Florida tour, and we'll go out, for this week and a half for the Midwest, and then we'll come back and perform our spring season in Boston, as well as some special celebratory concerts for John Williams' 85th birthday.
Oh wow!
And then we'll tour again more regionally toward the end of August.
Now, you serve as the principal conductor for the BBC Concert Orchestra. Is that correct?
I do. That's why I'm in London.
Do you find that the orchestral work is different in Europe compared to the States, or is it pretty much the same? Is it more revered in Europe?
No, I think that's our traditional, our old inferiority complex. The colony inferiority complex coming in. I think London is a great city to make music in. It's a huge city for one thing. It's a city of 10 plus million people, and a very, very diverse city. And there's a lot going on, and a lot of opportunity, a lot of music. I mean, there are 6, 7 major orchestras in London, which is something that is very, very different than American big cities, which tend to have 1 or 2. And I like the players around here a lot. It's kind of a keep calm and carry on sort of group, and they all scramble. They all work very hard. They're almost all freelancers here, and which means they work at 4 or 5 different jobs to make a decent living out of it. And I like their spirit. I've been principal conductor here for 8 years. And it fits pretty comfortably into my Boston Pop schedule and gives me a chance to hang out in London.
What has been some of the highlight? You've been there for 22 years with the Boston Pops. Do you have any 2 or 3 highlights that strike out in your memory?
Well, I mean, so much of it, and I've done during that time something like 40 tours and 1,800 concerts or something like that. So it's hard to pick highlights out of that much of material. Certainly, the 4th of July concert we do, which is viewed by people all over the country, and now with the internet platform all over the world, is always a high point. And I've done 22 of those in a row, and I'm looking forward to my 23rd. And that's especially I remember, of course, the first one, because I never conducted a concert for 500,000 people in the live crowd before.
Wow.
And it was one of the times, I think, when I was first aware of exactly what I'd gotten myself into. Certainly some of the big events we've been a part of, the Super Bowl in 2002, doing the pregame show with Paul McCartney. The first time I took the orchestra on an international tour, and we played in the huge the Tokyo Forum in Japan. We opened that venue, and a lot of memories like that. But generally speaking, it's not just the big moments to make it. It's just that we play a lot of great concerts and make lots and lots of people happy.
Do you have any favorite collaborations? I know you've worked with lots of top musicians and actors and celebrities over the years.
Oh, I always try really hard to not answer that question because, then I figured that the other ones will get miffed at me for leaving them out. But, Bernadette is one of them, honestly, and it's not just because she's in Denver. As I've told her, it's okay to print this because she knows I've had a crush on her since I was in high school, so it's great to make music with it. And so many others. The Pops. We play with Yo-Yo Ma and Ensar Perlman on the classical side, and we play with Audra McDonald and Bernadette Peters and Brian Stokes Mitchell and all sorts of, and Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth and all sorts of famous Broadway people and rockers like Steven Tyler from Aerosmith and Ben Folds and Elvis Costello and country people like Trisha Yearwood and Martina McBride. It kind of goes in all directions at once, and it's really hard to pick amongst all those, but I have to say at the end of the day, I'm happy I'm in a job where I get to, work with so many interesting people.
Now, does the Boston Pops do any recording, or is it mainly live performance?
We do. Over the years, the Pops have sold millions and millions and millions of albums, way back to the Arthur Fiedler era, and 1935, I think, was the first recording with them. These days, we don't record as frequently as we recorded even 20 years ago, my first time in there, but it's a good time if you feel like spending a little ink on it. We are actually recording an album. We're about halfway through, and we finish the rest of it the week after we get back from the tour.
Oh, really?
It's a special birthday tribute to John Williams, who was my predecessor at the Boston Pops, and probably the world's most famous composer.
Will it tie in with the
first time the pops. What's that?
Is it going to tie in with the new Star Wars?
It is going to get out. It's going to come out before the new Star Wars, which is too bad because we can't put any of that music on it. But it actually features the first orchestral recording of John's suite from The Force Awakens from the previous one.
Oh, wow!
And we are releasing it. And plus, some besides the things that everybody knows, John wrote some very interesting things that I think people generally don't know he wrote, like the overture to the Towering Inferno.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Mr. Chips. I mean, a lot of it. We're basically showing that John has written significant movie music in basically 6 full decades now, which is really quite amazing. And that album is going to be released at the beginning of our spring season in May. So it's a pretty fast turnaround from our last recordings from it are going to be in the beginning of April, and then we're going to get the CD out the door. But it's this whole spring season in Boston, we're paying tribute to John because of his 85th birthday, which he just passed.
Oh, wow. Oh, very cool. Well, my final question is, what's been the most satisfying part of your career so far?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I feel I think there's nobody luckier than performing artists who get to do what they would do if they didn't have to make a living and make a living doing it. That's something we have to remember, especially when the less fun things happen, which they do in everybody's career. You have to remember that you have one of those few people who has the rare opportunity to do what they would do if they didn't have to work.
Yeah.
And I feel very, very grateful for that. I mean, I've been very, very lucky for a kid from Poughkeepsie, New York. It's ongoingly great. I mean, I've been in this job for close to a quarter century, and who knew when I was 35? Nobody who's 35 knows what they're going to be doing 25